Hey, first of all, it's great to see everybody. I know it's Zoom. Look forward to seeing you guys hopefully over the next couple days. I'm really excited to be here and excited to get back to Wofford. I have to start by saying that I'd really like to thank Scott Fitterer and his staff, Dan Morgan, Pat Stewart, Samir Suleiman, Rob Hanrahan, Cole Spencer, and many, many more. I think we have a really talented team, and because we have talent, we can really focus on performance and results starting right now in training camp. And so I like the roster that we have. I like the additions that we've made, and I'm excited to get going. And, our plan, really is kind of a three-part plan. We have to take our defense, and they've got to go from good to great. I think we have the players to do it. Third year in the system, and we have to go from good to great on defense. Offensively, we have to really establish our identity. A lot of that is personnel. We have to establish, who our starters are on the offensive line. Obviously, we have to establish the quarterback position, who our starting quarterback is. But we also have to establish the identity. We've got a great start in OTAs, but we need to know who we are on offense. And then special teams-wise, I think one of our more unheralded moves has been really solidifying that specialist room with Johnny Hecker, Zane Gonzalez, J.J. and Fletch, and then Andre Roberts as a returner. And I think it's time for us that special teams really starts to affect winning. I think we have the guys to do it. So that's our approach. Special teams has to affect winning. Offense, establishing that identity and establishing who the quarterback is, who the O-linemen are. And finally, our defense going from good to great. So with that, I'll take whatever questions you guys have.
All right, let's start with Nick Carboni, followed by Josh Graham.
Hey, Matt, good to see you. This is the first time that we're able to talk to you since the Baker trade. I guess in your mind as the head coach, what made it so appealing to go out and get a guy like that at quarterback heading into training camp?
Well, I always look at my job is to put as many good players and good coaches in the rooms and then give them the opportunity to battle it out. And I really like our quarterback room. I don't know many teams that, we have Sam Darnold, who's been our starter, who had an excellent spring. And talking to him this summer, Sam's had an excellent summer. So we have Sam. We add in Baker Mayfield, who's took Cleveland to the playoffs, won a playoff game, set the rookie touchdown record. To add him, that's another starting caliber quarterback. Matt Corral is a young guy that we drafted that we really like and have a lot of hope for, and I expect him to come compete. I showed up to the stadium last night, and Matt was in there working out back in Charlotte, getting ready. And so that's another guy. And then obviously P.J. Walker is a guy that, we've asked him to start for us twice, and twice P.J. has gone out and won. So not many teams have, 4 quality players like that. And it's going to be a lot of great competition. And to be quite honest with you, Nick, I think it'll be really good for our team, the competition.
Hey, Matt, Josh Graham. Following up on that, Scott said that there was a time close to the draft, conversations had accelerated, and he thought that it might get done sooner, Baker being added to the team. When did you and Ben really start to imagine what this team might look like with Baker in that mix at quarterback?
Yeah, Scott and I had that conversation before the draft and in the draft. We were talking about that, and just the deal didn't happen. And so it was sort of an ongoing conversation until it finally did, occur. There were times where it looked like it wasn't going to occur. In spring and OTAs, we really became really excited about what Sam was doing. And when we got Matt, obviously we were excited about Matt. So, there was a time that wasn't sure if it was going to happen. But when the time came, at the end of the day, we felt like it was the right thing for the team, and we did it.
All right, let's go to Skylar Callahan, followed by Darren Gant.
Hey, Matt, good to see you. I hope you're well. Just wanted to get your thoughts on how this is going to look between Baker and Sam early on. Is it going to be 50-50? You're going to work your way up to 50-50 with the reps?
I haven't had a chance to sit down and talk to those guys face-to-face all in the room. They don't report till tomorrow. So, respectfully, I'll talk to those guys first and kind of dictate, explain how we plan on doing things. And then we'll share that with you guys afterwards. So I want to make sure that they're not hearing, sort of rep counts and things like that, over Twitter. I'd rather do it with them all in the same room. So we'll be direct. We have a really good plan. Ben, Ben's an excellent coach. Sean's an excellent coach. They'll do a great job in that room, but we'll share it with you when it's ready.
And then with Matt Corral too, Scott said that this wasn't necessarily going to be a redshirt year for him. Is that kind of how you see it too? This is still an opportunity for him to get out there.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, those guys they have opportunities every day in meetings. They have opportunities in practice to compete and be the best at what they are, to improve. And I expect all 4 guys to go in there and battle. And so that doesn't mean you get the same amount of opportunities maybe sometimes as other guys, but you get an opportunity. And I expect Matt Corral to come in here fighting and swinging. No one gives you anything in life. You got to go fight for what you want. And Matt Corral's a fighter. So we'll play it out as it comes.
Matt, you talked about the defense needing to go from good to great. What are the tangible steps they've got to do, and how do you fix that how do you get to that point over the next month?
Well, I really think it started in OTAs and in spring. I think the first thing, Darren, is that we have to become a much better red zone defense. Year one, I think the year before we got here, we were 24th in defense. The first year, Phil's defense, I think they were 16th in total defense. Last year, we were second, but we were not good enough in red zone and scoring defense, which obviously is what matters. So we have to become a better red zone defense, specifically red zone third downs. That would be the number one thing. And the number 2 is we have to create more turnovers. We want to lead the league in takeaways. We have the guys to do it. We have cover guys to do it. We have linebackers who can run and hit and cover. And then we have made a real investment over the last 3-4 years, even preceding me, with Brian Burns, Marquise Haynes. We have defensive linemen who should affect the passer. So I think the 2 key areas that we want to make improvements on in defense are the red zone defense and takeaways.
Let's go to Will Kunkel, followed by Joe Person.
Hey, Matt. How you doing, bud?
Hey, Will.
Just kind of a house cleaning question. Start times kind of pushed back this year from, I think it was 8 or 8:30. What was kind of the reasoning? And it kind of jockeys a little bit too.
It's a great question. So because it's so hot here at Wofford, the NFL allows us basically what they term 2 practices a day, a practice and a walkthrough. We did the walkthrough in the afternoons last year, but because there's no indoor facility, it was just unbearable at times. Guys are out here, it's just unsafe. So what we did was we just flipped it. We put the walkthrough first thing at 8 o'clock in the morning. Then players have to have 90 minutes between walkthrough and practice. We give them their 90 minutes, and then we go right to practice. So it moved the start time back a little bit, which means practice is going to be a little hotter. It's not necessarily exactly what I want, but it's still in that 12:30 window. And so we're trying to kind of, the NFL also implemented new rules in terms of the first practice can only be 90 minutes. So there's some different timing that the NFL introduced. So that has affected a little bit of the start times and trying to keep some things on the back end consistent. So we felt like, we're here for less time this year. I think it's 2 weeks two weeks and a couple days. We would be able to battle the heat for 2 weeks, but trying to get that walkthrough in as opposed to having to cancel it or go into a gym.
Hey, Matt, how you doing?
Hey, Joe, how you doing?
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
I was going to ask you, I know you try to establish this every year, but how do you sort of get the sense of urgency to the level you want and need that as camp gets started?
That's a great question. Let me say that first. I think I think the biggest thing is getting guys who have that innate sense of urgency. And when you have a young team, sometimes, young guys, they think they have forever in this league and they're just kind of happy to be here. Well, a lot of our young guys are older guys now. Chin's going into his 3rd year. They have a sense of urgency that they want to win. And I like our veteran players. I think we have a tremendous group of veterans that are going to lead the way. And so, to me, we had this conversation in the spring about, hey, letting the players, drive things more. I think the first 2 years are trying to figure everything out. What does this look like? We all kind of know now how we do things, what the plan is. And I think the Shaq Thompsons, the Christian McCaffreys, they will establish and set the sense of urgency. The coaches, we have to obviously do it as well. But when it comes from the players, it's so much better and so much more real. And so we have a lot of guys who know what to expect now. We have a much better roster, to be quite honest. There's a lot of competition, and that brings urgency as well. So I think the competition, the battles in camp, but the desire to win is what will do it.
And then quick follow-up, you had mentioned in the spring that Davion was a guy that may or may not be ready. Will he or anyone else start on the PUP?
I'll probably announce PUP tomorrow after we've had the physicals. I want to do that kind of all at once. But I do anticipate Davion. We're expecting him to be full go. We'll do a good job in terms of limiting his volume early on. We're not going to throw him out there and go right to Oklahoma drill, which is outlawed. But we'll bring him along. The only person that right now we foresee starting on PUP before physical is Shaq Thompson. Shaq. We did a little clean out of his knee. He'll be back in a couple weeks, but he'll probably start. He'll start on PUP, and that's that's probably a really good thing for him. He'll be really healthy this year.
All right, let's go to Ellis Williams, followed by Scott Fowler.
Hey, Matt, how you doing?
Hey, Ellis.
I'm wondering how you as a and your coaching staff have tried to expedite Baker Mayfield's understanding of the offense. Obviously, with him coming in a little late, he mentioned to some media in Norman, he was upset that he couldn't get somewhere before minicamp, which obviously would have helped him get a grasp of that offense sooner. With him not having OTAs in minicamp, is there a plan in place to help expedite that process of him grasping Ben McAdoo's offense?
Yeah, I think the first thing is, we're able to make available to him playbook, iPad, all those things once it was official. So he was able to start on his own. I think when you have a guy like Baker, he's had several different offensive coordinators in his time. So he's gone through this process. He knows what it takes to learn a new offense. And so he's kind of had that head start, going back, watching the tapes, watching the installs, having the playbook in his hands. And then he has a history with Coach Campen, so a lot of the terminology, a lot of times for quarterbacks, I think that's one of the biggest things is, hey, how do I adjust the protections? And he has some history with Coach Camp, so but there's no doubt that's one of the he has to get here, and he has to learn the offense, and he has to go from level 1 knowing the offense to level 4 mastery, where you're unconsciously competent, and so that's his journey. That's part of his journey when he gets here, and so. Ben will do a great job having a plan for him, scripting plays for him, that he can really, grow in the offense as we get going.
Thank you.
Matt, when you're talking about defensively and good to great, makes me think of Brian Burns a little bit. Has made the Pro Bowl and has obviously had a really great start to his career, but certainly there's probably room for improvement there. Where do you specifically want Brian Burns to go from good to great this year?
Yeah, I think Brian's a tremendous example of a guy that's has to go from good to great. And I was really proud of how he showed up to OTAs. He had put on muscle and strength because he's such a great athlete. The more that he can include the power rushing game into his game, it'll change everything for him because. He's such a great speed rusher. He can change tempos on guys. He can change levels up and down on guys. But if he has the ability to put his foot in the ground and run you over too, that's what takes you from 9, 10, 11 sacks to 15, 16, 17 sacks. His commitment I talked about all spring, to me, that comes first, your commitment to being great, and I've seen it, and I'm excited about it. And I think the last thing is, sacks in the fourth quarter, Sacks are a great number, but sacks in the fourth quarter win games. And so as he comes to work, his conditioning level, it's those sacks that affect seasons. And so he's a leader on this team. I expect him to make that jump this year.
Thanks.
All right, let's go to David Newton, followed by Varun Shakur.
Hey, Matt, good to see you. Wanted to ask you a couple questions here. One, Baker and Sam have been working out with a few teammates the last few days in the Charlotte area. And what does that say to you about Sam's mentality, the fact that he's participated in that and not kind of felt like the outlier here?
Yeah, I mean, Sam's an amazing person. He's an awesome person, first of all. He's also a competitor. Like, you know, he's determined to play his best football this year. So I've seen nothing but positive things from Sam since the end of last season, to the way he showed up in the spring, to what he did in the spring until now. And so, you know, when we let him know, you know, I'm not going to share a lot of my conversations with guys, but when we let him know that we were making this move, he handled it like the ultimate team guy and the ultimate professional. And so, I think he's taken very much a, hey, I'm going to control what I can control, and that's the way that I play. And so I look forward to seeing him play great football this camp.
And I understand you don't want to share the rep splits, but I think Scott, when Baker was signed, said they were probably going to split them pretty evenly between at least Sam and Baker. Is that kind of the thought process right now, just between those two?
Yeah, like I said, I'm going to talk to those guys tomorrow, and then, you know, you guys will get me every day, so I'll be excited to talk to you and go through it in more detail. But I just feel like, for me, the best thing is to make sure I have that conversation with each one of those guys in terms of, hey, here's how we're going to start. And I think things will be fluid as camp goes on, but, you know, I want to make sure I show them that respect.
And one other thing, there was, I guess, back when you faced Baker in college, and I think the pregame, he was talking a little trash to your teammates and said you forgot who your daddy is, going to have to spank you. And you guys had a good showing that day, but that personality that you got from Baker there, you saw from Baker there, and it's kind of maintained the last few years in NFL too. Is that something you want to continue, that edginess?
Well, I have to tell you, David, I got to tell you the story, how it really happened. So I'm in the locker room, and, you know, we're not very good at the time. I think we're 0-3 or 0-4, and they said, hey, there's a fight. The DBs and Baker almost just got into a fight, and I came storming out. You know, I went after the officials, and I'm like, I want 15 yards on him, da-da-da-da-da. And Charlie Brewer, my freshman quarterback at the time, who was redshirting, wasn't even playing, who ended up being my starting quarterback, you know, later that year and for 2 years, a great player, went to Lake Travis, and he actually walked over to me and said, hey, Coach, Baker didn't start that fight, I did. So it's a little Lake Travis thing that, you know, they breed competitors there, I can promise you that. So I want every player on our team to be themselves. I want every player on this team to be themselves, but to live up to the standards of our team. And, you know, at the end of the day, winning comes first. Winning always comes first. It's about winning. It's not about me. It's not about you. It's not personal battles. It's about winning. So as long as what guys do leads to winning and leads to performance and results, then I want them to be who they are. And so that for Baker, I haven't coached Baker. I talked to Lincoln about Baker, and, you know, he told me, hey, you're going to love him. But I want Baker to be Baker. I want Sam to be Sam. I want them all just to be themselves.
Okay. And do you have in your mind a 1A, 1B going into this thing, or do you really consider this wide open?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, football players are the ultimate competitors, and I think the great ones love competition. And so, in fact, the best of the best create competition sometimes when it isn't there. So, to me, my job is not to pick the starting quarterback. The players will do that with the way that they play. My job is to make sure that we have really good players in the room, which we do in that room, and make sure that they have opportunities. And so, you know, it'll be a fun ride. When we know, we know.
Hey, Matt, wanted to ask, second year now where you've got a 17-game schedule, 3 preseason games. What did you learn from last year's experience with that you're going to apply for this time around?
That's a really good question. I think you know, when we look back at it last year, especially the first time going to Wofford, you know, and the unique opportunity that this provides to get away, to be sequestered. You know, we went from 2 joint practices last year, which I thought was appropriate for us in the time and space where we were as a team, to now we're just doing 1 joint practice. It's on the road. You know, I think it's really unique to have a joint practice versus a team you played the previous year and you lost to. So we played the Patriots. We lost to the Patriots. I have so much respect, obviously, for Coach Belichick and that organization and those coaches and players. To have a chance to go practice against them really is a chance for us to measure ourselves. So the other thing I would say is that week after the last game is a unique week. It's, you're kind of making that 53 cut, and then there's some time and the time off. So really kind of going back and looking at how we handled it last year and what the best practices are heading into that first game. So, but I think the change of joint practice is probably the biggest thing.
All right, we have time for a few more. Let's go to Brett Jensen, followed by Deshaun Brown.
Hey, Matt, hope you're well. Real quick, I know people were talking a lot nationally about you last year towards the end of the season about being on the proverbial hot seat. And, and I don't know if that was the very first time in your career that you've actually, been mentioned as such, because obviously you didn't have it at Temple or Baylor. Was that a difficult situation for you personally and your family going down the stretch last year? And, there was also a lot of talk about this is a year that you as a coach have to prove yourself and get more than the 5 wins. So, I mean, how much has that impacted you from a national standpoint, especially last year at the end of the season?
Last year's to me is over. It's kind of like golf. You play a bad round, and you sit there and you say, you feel terrible about your game, and then all of a sudden you show up the next day and you play golf again. And it's like, hey, I could have a great round. And so, I thought we did a lot of things well early in the year, and then just down the stretch, I didn't get it done. We didn't get it done, and so that's our job. It's a results-oriented business, and I certainly don't want to be a part of an organization that tolerates, mediocrity and a lack of success. And so that's got to start with me. So, do you like that? No, but at the end of the day, I can promise you, like, my life is about winning and losing, and so I don't like losing. So that affected me as much as anything else. Things with my family. My son's here working as an equipment manager. He's going to go play ping pong with Christian McCaffrey today. You get amazing opportunities like that. Some bad stuff will come along the way, but I want to make sure I say this. People in Charlotte have been amazing to my family. Absolutely amazing. I'm a regular guy. You see me at the park. You'll see me out to eat with my wife. Like, I'm not, I'm nothing special. Like, I'm a regular guy. And so people, when I see them on the street, have been amazing. So this year, I expect to win. I want to win. I've never had gone into a season and said, I hope I could only win this many games to keep my job. I'm not doing that, man. I want to win at the highest level, just like Christian does, just like Shaq does, just like everybody in this organization does. And that's why, I woke up today ready to go, excited to be here, and I like where we're at.
Well, speaking of Christian real quick, in terms of that, do you plan on handling him differently this training camp? Or maybe even potentially see a preseason game? Like, how do you plan on handling that considering what's happened the last 2 years?
I think our biggest thoughts as we look back to Christian, or just maybe some tweaks in season. I think I liked what we did with him. I liked a lot of things we did last year in training camp. I mean, we got off to a pretty good start, and then obviously had a bunch of injuries in that Texans game, and then we just didn't play well enough after that. But I think a lot of things we did in training camp last year were right, and so I don't see many changes to what we're going to do with Christian. I think each year too, you kind of look at your team. What does our team need? What does our offense need? And that affects what does our defense need. That affects how much you play different guys in preseason. So. We'll see how practice goes, and we'll make a lot of those decisions. I have some clear thoughts in my mind, obviously, but some more finite decisions on different guys as we get closer to those games.
We have time for one more really quick one, Deshaun.
All right, Coach, good afternoon, and thank you for the time. You mentioned some of the veteran leadership you expect as far as the players on the team, but where have you seen the benefit or perhaps even the difference in preparation heading into camp with some of the veteran additions to the coaching staff?
That's a great question. I think Ben. I'll start with Ben. As the offensive coordinator, he's truly a coordinator. He's not just a play caller. He's a coordinator. He handles every detail of everything on offense. He works really well with that group. And I'll tell you, that takes a lot off your plate as a head coach. When you have two guys like Phil Snow and Ben McAdoo who really handle their areas. Chris Tabor, same thing. These are guys who've done it at a high level, and so it takes a lot off your plate as a coach. Knowing that you're going to just get end result work product. James Campen and Paul Pasqualoni, two veteran coaches. Because at the end of the day, in my mind, in this league, you win up front on the offensive and defensive lines. And we spent 2 years investing in the defensive line. We have good players in that room. I think Coach Pasqualoni is going to do a great job of elevating that room. And we were able to really go out and invest this year in the offensive line to go along with what we've done the previous years. And I think Coach Campen will affect that. And then, to hire a guy like Steve Wilkes, just a guy who's, I have 2 guys on my staff now who've been head coaches, and Coach Pasqualoni, who's been a head coach in college for a long time, highly successful. You can't pick up the phone in this league and call another head coach and say, hey, what would you do? I'm lucky. I have some. Coach Rhule called me the other day. I have some great guys I can go to and look for advice. But now I have them on my staff as well, who've sat in that seat. So I'm really happy with the staff, where we are as a staff. I remember some really veteran NFL coaches told me when I came into this league, because of the hiring rules, they said, you know what, Matt, sometimes it takes you to your second or third year to really get the staff the way you want it. Sometimes you have to wait till a guy's contract comes up. I have this staff right now where I really want it. I like them. I trust them. I'm excited actually to go see them.